My brothers and sisters, what we are witnessing today in Uganda is not democracy. It is the deliberate manipulation of the people's will, carried out in full view of the world. I speak to you not merely as a commentator, but as an African who has seen this same story unfold again and again across our continent. Different countries, different faces, but the same script. The voting in Uganda has officially ended. Yes, citizens went to polling stations. Yes, ballots were cast. But what is unfolding now is a carefully managed process designed to produce a predetermined outcome.
As the votes are being counted, numbers are emerging. But these numbers do not reflect the free choice of the Ugandan people. They reflect a system that was compromised long before a single vote was cast. President Yoweri Museveni, who has ruled Uganda since 1986, nearly 40 years, openly stated before the counting was completed that he expected to win 88% of the vote. Even more troubling, he claimed that any result below that figure would mean the election had been stolen from him. Think about that for a moment. A man in power for 4 decades declaring his victory margin in advance and accusing others of theft if reality does not match his prediction. So the real question is not whether votes are being stolen. The question is, who is stealing from whom? On the other side of this contest stands Bobi Wine and the opposition. From before Election Day, they warned Ugandans that this vote would not be free or fair. They pointed to signs of manipulation, intimidation, and institutional bias well ahead of time. And when we examine the conditions under which this election took place, those warnings cannot be dismissed. 2 days before Ugandans were scheduled to vote, the government shut down the internet nationwide. In 2025, an entire country was digitally silenced during a national election. The official explanation was the usual one: preventing misinformation, maintaining security, avoiding unrest. But history teaches us something very clear. When governments shut down communication during elections, it is rarely to protect democracy. By cutting off the internet, Ugandans were left unable to share evidence from polling stations, unable to coordinate observers, and unable to expose irregularities in real time. Journalists were reduced to phone calls. Live reporting became nearly impossible. Transparency disappeared. International human rights organizations quickly condemned the blackout, describing it as an authoritarian tactic, and rightly so. When leaders fear exposure, they create darkness. Now let us talk about voter turnout. Participation was noticeably low. Many Ugandans stayed home. This was not because they did not care, it was because many believed their votes would not change the outcome. When people lose faith in the electoral process, they withdraw. And yet, despite this low turnout, President Museveni still insists he deserves an overwhelming 88% victory. Ask yourself honestly, how does an incumbent gain an even larger percentage when fewer people vote? On the ground, Bobi Wine's team reported widespread irregularities. They witnessed ruling party operatives distributing money near polling stations. Opposition polling agents were chased away or prevented from observing the vote. In areas like Kisenyi, Bobi Wine personally observed intimidation and violence. Known opposition supporters were attacked. Security forces looked away. Meanwhile, ruling party operatives moved freely. This is not democracy. This is power maintained through fear. Throughout the campaign period, violence was constant. Just weeks earlier, Bobi Wine was assaulted during rallies. His supporters were dispersed with tear gas. This pattern never stopped. And now we are expected to believe that in an environment of intimidation, censorship, and violence, Ugandans freely chose to hand their future back to the same man for a 7th term. The problems did not begin on Election Day. The voter register itself was deeply flawed. Opposition parties identified duplicate entries and inconsistencies. These concerns were ignored. Then, on voting day, rules changed midstream. Biometric verification, previously mandatory, was suddenly abandoned hours into the process. Everyone on the register was allowed to vote, regardless of verification. When rules change during an election, it is never accidental. President Museveni has accused the opposition of vote theft in past elections and used this claim to justify electronic voting. But the same government that promoted electronic systems shut down the internet that those systems rely on. So let us be clear. The government cuts the internet. The electronic system fails. And then results appear showing a massive victory for the incumbent. This is not coincidence. It is design. Uganda has now endured days of communication blackout. Only a few citizens using VPNs have been able to share limited information.